Very super virulent strain of the virus which is circulating. Time now for my political panel. The Liberal MP Tim Wilson and Labor MP Josh Burns both join me this afternoon. But before we get into it, I want to tell the audience that it's no mistake that you're both Victorian-based MPs. We made a deliberate decision to invite two Victorian-based MPs given what is happening in Melbourne. Tim, yesterday I recall you began your sentence before I rudely interrupted you for a press conference we needed to move to, saying that the media wants lockdowns, but you were not such a fan. Your government has come out today, your Prime Minister saying he is a fan of this 7-day circuit breaker. Are you now a fan?
I don't think anybody's a fan of lockdowns, PK. It's only a question about what measures are responsible. And my comments yesterday were the media rushes to support lockdowns rather than seeing what the evidence base has presented itself. Now, the evidence base has changed in the past 24 hours. We've now had essentially more than a doubling in the number of cases in Victoria, and that's meant the state government has taken measures. But I would be shocked if James Merlino, the acting Premier of Victoria, said he was a fan. The question is what is necessary to do what is needed to protect the community, and that's the big task that's faced state and Commonwealth governments throughout this entire pandemic. And the Prime Minister is right. This pandemic is over. It has never been over, and we have to make sure we do what we need to do in the circumstances.
OK, so you support this lockdown and the restrictions that come with it?
Well, it may appear to be necessary, and that's the challenge. We won't know more for sort of 72 hours. Will give us a much clearer indication about how far this potential spread has gone. But the measures taken at the moment seem to reflect, I think, where the concern is at both the state and the Commonwealth level, which is the very serious risk of transmission in the Victorian community.
Josh, the Prime Minister has also changed his tune from the way he was speaking about lockdowns last year or some of these restrictions, clearly providing support to the Victorian government for its circuit breaker lockdown. Are you pleased to see more bipartisanship on these sorts of things?
Well, it's not really a surprise, PK, because Victorians remember the pretty extraordinary attacks that the Prime Minister and the Treasurer and the Health Minister issued during Stage 4 lockdown, and when it was partisan politics at a time where we needed a Prime Minister to be the leader of our country. So, of course, we would prefer the federal government not issuing sort of cheap shots from the sidelines. We need to make sure that the federal government's doing everything that they should be doing to make sure these things aren't happening. And I would come back to quarantine. I mean, we're in this situation, this devastating situation that we're going back into lockdown because we had an Australian person who travelled back from India, didn't catch the virus in India. They caught it in hotel quarantine in South Australia, and then it's come to Victoria, and now the virus has spread, and we don't have enough vaccinations to ensure that we can protect enough people. So we're going back into lockdown.
Yeah, I want to bring that up with you too, if I can, Tim Wilson. The vaccination rollout and its slow pace, as well as having hotel quarantine as our main mechanism rather than purpose-built facilities. They've been identified by federal Labor and others, even the AMA raising those issues as problems that have led to what we're seeing in Victoria. Do you blame those two elements?
Well, firstly, the hotel quarantine system sits alongside the dedicated facility at Howard Springs, and the advice consistently, even with the proposal of the new Victorian Centre, is to be in complement to hotel quarantine, because you don't just need the facilities, you need access to hospitals, you need access to a workforce, you need access to catering, you need access to airports, etc. So a lot of people have a starry-eyed view, politely, about quarantine, thinking you can just do it somewhere else and all of a sudden the problem will be solved. Wherever there is human-to-human interaction, which occurs at all quarantine facilities in almost all circumstances, there is a risk. And we know that, and we've known that from the beginning. And the reality is one of the biggest challenges we have with the vaccine rollout is actually hesitancy from the public. There was data published about this last week where 50% of Australians were worried about getting the vaccine because of the concerns around side effects. So rather than engaging in the cheap politics and stunts that the member for McNamara does, what we should actually be trying to do is build people's sense of confidence around the vaccine so that they get vaccinated. Now that we're able to get under the age of 50, between 40 and 49, I'm in that camp, so I'll be going off getting vaccinated. I encourage other people too, because whether it's Pfizer or AstraZeneca or the Moderna vaccine, particularly in the case of the concerns around AstraZeneca, the risks of some side effects are pale into significance in comparison to the risks of getting COVID-19. And we should be encouraging people at every point to make sure you go out, get vaccinated, because it's the best protection from the virus, from lockdowns or any other measures that are necessary to make sure there isn't transmission of the virus.
Josh, the Prime Minister today said he's highly favourable towards Victoria's proposed new quarantine facility and thinks it can be done even quicker than Victoria has suggested. Surely you're happy with that? Labor's been saying we want purpose-built quarantine facilities, and here we have the Prime Minister saying, yeah, we think it can be done quicker.
PK, I think what we really need is a Prime Minister stop announcing things and to start doing things. The Prime Minister should be saying, here's what we're doing today to get this done as quickly as possible. As the Acting Premier James Merlino said, the best time to build quarantine facilities was 12 months ago, and the second best time is today. So enough announcements. I don't care if the Prime Minister thinks it's favourable. I want to know how much money the Prime Minister is putting in, what the federal government is going to do to make this happen, to make the quarantine facilities in Victoria, in Queensland, even the upgrade of the Howard Springs facility to 2,000 beds. I want to know what he's doing to make that happen right now. Where is the urgency? Also, where is the urgency on the vaccine rollout? They said they'd get 4 million vaccines by March, by the end of March, and that involved around 120,000 cases a day. And when they weren't meeting that, their response wasn't, well, we've got to try and find a way. Their response was, well, targets are too difficult. And then I would go back to Tim's point. You know, he says, I would encourage Australians to go and get vaccinated. This government spent $1 billion in advertising. Where is this inspiring national advertising campaign? Where is the campaign to make Australians feel comfortable and confident getting this vaccine? It doesn't exist because the federal government hasn't prioritised it.
Okay.
I think we're sick of all of the announcements. Let's see some action.
There's advertising at the moment with Nick Coatsworth on national television. I saw one just before I went on. So, you know, this is the disappointing thing, is we actually need to be encouraging people. And you know, Josh just then faced a choice. He could score partisan, petty political points, or he could actually say to the audience at home, go out and get vaccinated. I encourage you to get vaccinated. It's important for your health and your responsibility towards other Australians. And I just wish the Labor Party would actually focus on that message, which apparently we also need an advertising campaign for, which we have. That's how important it is. But he won't even reiterate those simple points on national television when he has the opportunity.
Well,
that's the difference between
I don't think he's against vaccinating.
And being, well, he can say
ridiculous.
it, and he should encourage you to be responsible.
Okay. Well, I've got to say goodbye to you both because I've got another guest waiting for me. But I think you're both pro-vaccination. Can we just clarify that? Yep.
Clear.
Yep.
Yes. Pro-vaccinations.
Me
PK.
too. In fact, I was on the phone trying to get my Pfizer vaccine now that I'm allowed. And they're joining us, Liberal MP Tim Wilson and Labor MP Josh Burns. And just to be crystal clear, go and get vaccinated. Bill